Hello and welcome. It is the 15th day of July 2018. My name is Derek. This is the Crypto Day Morning on the Money Charts channel. I'd like to thank you and all bets that you make, all wagers, trades. That's your own risk and reward. And in the crypto space, you are your own boss. So totally, that should be a very important. And of course, our risk reward management, totally job number one for myself. Let's take a look at some of these charts, some of these time frames with Bitcoin and a few others. Bitcoin on the 3-day time frame continues to trade amongst this declining 18 average, and it's not breaking down below it because when you look at reversal of trend, stage 1, band flatten out, stage 2, establish a level of support, stage 3, come back to correctionary phase, stage 4, break that resistance level, and bear market. Oh, since then, okay, one leg lower, okay, resist 18, which is what you're supposed to do in a bear market. Okay, yeah, here's the problem here. It didn't make a lower low. I mean, it technically made a higher low, but I'm not even going to say that. I'm going to say matching low. But what's up, bear market? Why didn't you go make a lower low? I say with a question mark. However, bear market run, well, it got to the 18. It didn't succeed breaking the 18. Thus, it made a lower high. That's what bear markets do. Okay, and here's a leg lower. Now, this one really isn't over, but it is correcting within the band now. So, thus, small price and time correction is in place. But it still hasn't convincingly broken down below this low. But since reaching this bottom point, I mean, market has had like no strength whatsoever. It's showing a lot of weakness in the 18 overall. But amongst every single time that has left the 18, at least over the last two, price action has successfully held that 6,000 handle. When we transition this into a daily term time frame, we can take a look at that at what has been notified as a possible inverted head and shoulders pattern. For that would be, and this can look very sick depending on how you perceive this image, but it is what it is. Left shoulder, right shoulder, or head rather, and this is the right shoulder. Some of these patterns just seem to do it. Same with double bottoms too. Double bottom looks something like that. And sometimes it even pierces a little bit extra as well. I'm just saying. But however you look at this, and this one in particular, getting above the 2 times hit resistance is a very bullish situation, and it can become more predictable when you make a higher low. It looks like it might be the case, but leaving up here, if you see market rallying, well, last time it rallied from point A to point B. Now we are doing A plus a little higher than A, whatever, 1 point, like whatever, A plus another number, meaning a larger number. So the distance from here to here, which should naturally just make a higher high in itself, or thus get out past the neckline. And the neckline isn't at around, we'll say 6,800 on the Bitcoin. Looking at such on the 400-minute, as we can see it, this is the move down on the left shoulder. There's your wild move lower, making new lower lows. And there's a retest of previous support amongst such. So there's the double bottom right here. And then it already had a break to a key level, which is like a small, it's one of the stages needed to revert a downtrend. And there's so many of them. Having a situation of forming an inverted head and shoulders pattern and completing it would still have a long ways to go. But within how we're looking at this now, it came down from this high to this low. And it is so far within the 400-minute been correcting solidly within the 18. And since it's at the bottom period, that it wouldn't surprise me if it is able to go and thus go higher for the day. Of course, it's a very, very choppy market, and markets can move high, have big up and down moves whenever. But overall, as far as probability odds are concerned, it it looks as if it might be able to do something of that nature. But again, we're in a spot where we look at this on a more longer term time frame on the 3-day chart, that it's got to get, I mean, as I mentioned on the outset, it made a bear market breaking down below this low. So it's only made one low since it's the original one. So therefore, I deem it neutral with a very large, cautious situation breaking support. It's tough for me to give it a good positive neutral status because of the fact that it's got a long ways to go towards here. And I really can't give any type of bullish movements until I see that it's able to get away from the previous resistant levels. Because I feel that if it's at like 12, this area here, and it's confirmedly above the highs, 12, 13, 14,000, that is going to be a very interesting situation. We're seeing movements like we did in here of just consistent up moves to come into play. Would not be a surprise, but not until then will I be very confident for such an event to occur, at least for good probability odds. And we finish this off within a single hour time frame. This is, I think, a very interesting chart or time frame. So you had this level of resistance. You also pierced a few extra areas as well. So it's holding in towards the upper end here as of now. When you see a situation like this occur, where you have a long-standing range of such, you first notice that it changed a little bit here as it managed to ride on a barely rising 18 average. But now it's making the statement that it's ready to leave this point. You'd have to think if it's just going to go to a new floor. It's got maybe, I mean, it's not a straight line, but a little bit of ways to get up to this point. But even still, and this would complete the inverted head and shoulders pattern, that if it is able to get away and do well, you could have like a big move up here. And most likely, if it's going to happen, my guess is that it's going to happen fast, like all of the others. Now, whether there'll be a failed breakdown before it happens, maybe, probably, I don't know. They seem to do so. But when you have these key moves and you're trying to wait for situations, if it breaks above a certain number for key resistance, usually then that's when you have the big moves, and thus you have to be really, really fast when you're acting upon the situation. Moving on to Litecoin against the dollar, and it does not have any of that inverted head and shoulders pattern stuff whatsoever. And a long time ago, it clearly broke through this level of resistance. And as I mentioned before, I didn't expect 100 to be that much for support. That was correct. Here we are standing now, supporting well at around the 73 level. Declining so many of these times. When Bitcoin goes, you'd expect that this one is going to as well, but higher volatile moves on the way up and higher volatile moves on the way down, I would expect, as it remains really in a sideways consolidation pattern. It's at a big situation, interesting situation. From this point, you have the rally. How do you digest that rally? Well, you do so by congesting, staying within the 18 average of highs. Have this little bit of a move up here. Now it's had a decent retracement, but only to the 18 lows. But only is an interesting point, because if you see any market action have that retracement where it fills some of this empty space, but more importantly, corrects within this type of, the 18 lows anyway, and then you start to see momentum further, that usually gives indication that it might be ready to break the resistance range and then test some of these new areas in here. Ethereum on its single hour time frame, we can see that sort of same way sideways movement. It's at the upper end of this resistance range now. So for me, I want to see it hold successfully around the 437 handle, 437 to 438. And again, if breaking out above this, I'm looking at previous resistance here on the daily chart for such a case. I mean, you can, it's not really a head and shoulders pattern, but however, you got this, it has made the higher low. So thus, as far as the 18 is concerned, if you make a higher low after correcting this 18, really what you're doing is you're going to stage 2, which is establishment of resistance. Stage 1, band flatten out, has already been in place. That happened, of course, when price action got into the band. It barely got above it, but that's not enough to establish resistance. And moving on to the next coin. It's Bitcoin Cash, but I'm really not going to say much here because it's pretty much got the same similar pattern as Ethereum. Here we got NEO, and when you look at the mathematics here, Bitcoin has went from 20,000 to 3x. Okay, 100 and we'll say close to 200 down to 33. Well, 3x is going from 100 to that of such price. So it's lost a 6x move, and it's had stage 1 band flatten out, stage 2 resistance established at about 42.80, stage 3 it's already done so, coming back to the band. It is showing weakness or its strength amongst the 18 lows, which is actually that of weak. However, that system is still in place because it's got the higher low. If the rally comes in, it's just an extended correctionary move phase. You break above this, you can pretty much almost even count this as an inverted head and shoulders pattern, although a very weak first shoulder. And then this, and then this. But regardless of how you look at it, the whole point of why the inverted head and shoulders patterns work is because after a good decline, you have a good rally, a higher low correction, sell-off lower, and thus you get everything back on the sell-off to get to the neckline. That's why it's such a strong pattern when you look at it at a more tangible way. Ethereum Classic next, which is technically still in a bull market, I guess you would say, because, and it's definitely an early mover. Stage 1, band flatten out. Stage 2, establish resistance. Stage 3, come back to the band. Stage 4, it's taking it out barely. Although it's correcting this low, band's flattening out there. If this starts to revert down lower, well, that would end the bull market. But because of the movement and it's a successful correctionary move here, any type of movements forward, and it's all going to rely, I think, mainly on the general markets together, that it wouldn't surprise me on either direction. Oh, Bitcoin goes up. You see this break resistance. Yeah, of course, it was in a bull market. And then say Bitcoin does break its key 6,000 level. Convincingly, of course. This is going to go too, and you're like, well, of course it went down because Bitcoin, I mean, it's going to drag all of them down. Even in a bullish setup, it's going to do so. So really, that's, I think, a good way for, at least that I'm looking at it anyway. EOS, I don't got much data on here. I can get it if I wanted to, but I don't really need it. It was resisting this 18 average of highs on the daily term time frame for about a week. 2 convincing red candles down. It technically made a new leg lower. It's resisting that previous area. When you look at this on a 60-minute time frame from its move, well, to me, it's got a big move coming either way. It's had this level of resistance, and I really love how it's been holding amongst this level of support. It's been doing well in at least holding in there since really it stopped going down on July the 11th. So 4 days of hanging in there, not really retracing much. This little bit obviously got back in a little heartbeat as it is. That any move breaking above this, it shows a lot of strength because of how well this pattern on a bullish level is, the ultimate amounts of times in which it is resisted near this area, how well of an uptrend move it's had since the bottom. But overall, it's a very good correctionary phase. So therefore, if this has its up move, I wouldn't be surprised to fill this area, maybe make a move up to $8 and change. That's greater than 20%. And this is something you would expect in a couple of days. So it's really a day trade more than anything when you're looking at it on the 60-minute time frame. But in a bear market, when you have a situation of down move, correction, when you're done correction and you have resumption of bear market, that's why if this thing doesn't get going and it completes, and really what's a neutral trend, it could be an interesting leg lower. Again, especially if Bitcoin convincingly breaks down below 6. And finally, VeChain, VEN, which is something I ended up purchasing yesterday. And that was because of mathematics on so many fronts. One, Fibonacci, downside from this low to this high worked out to be where it was. I got in at about $1.80 something, $1.88 I think. And I figured, you know what, I've been haven't been buying too many new coins. I've been expecting and I've been waiting a long time for the 3,000 possible hit. Even some at the $5,000 level, I got buy orders ready to go. But I want to slow in adding ones up, like very rarely here and there. When I had a great SYS move, I added one extra coin, which was basically a free roll, if you will. And in a case when I consider my portfolio that of such too, when you bring it up multiple times larger. But throwing that part aside, we have the situation where I've only bet a little bit overall. As long as I calculate not to enter into too many positions right now, I think I'm going to be fine, because I want to have enough just in case the bear market doesn't happen. And even if it does, I'm going to be fine, meaning the Bitcoin move to 3,000. And of course, entering into positions, I would rather enter into positions as they've been going down compared to as they've been going up and they're having like 8, 9, 10, 20x gains like all the other cryptos had at the end of last year, start of this year. To me, it's a beautiful time to start entering into such, because if you've been waiting on the fence, picking away small amounts, bits and pieces here until you really think it's a great buying opportunity, to me is a decent strategy, which is why I don't mind getting into it. So basically, I'll be looking to do like I do every code. I'll put sell orders up in different spots, buy orders down below, not below 177, by the way, but the whole idea is that's exactly how I play the game. And say for example, the sell order comes in at say, let me just think, 1836 plus another 10, about 50 cents. I have a sell orders probably somewhere around here. So if it comes up and it hits here, what am I going to do? I'm probably going to look at the market and say, okay, I'm either going to buy at a higher low, maybe matching low, put a buy order there, probably put a buy order down again to the $1.80 something level. Then I'll make sure a sell order is secure in here, and then so on and so forth. So and then again, that's what I'm doing. What you do obviously is your own risk, own reward. I like to I think making my ideas your own is a very good way of doing it. At least my teacher basically said that he said make his ideas our own, and that's what I did, and I've totally been very unique in how I view and trade the market. Thank you for tuning in, and have yourself a great day. Bye-bye.